nice appetizer. You know, $3 billion going around in the ICO market, thousands waiting to happen. I think one of the co-founders of Galia, who's about to talk, also mentioned that we're going to enter the long tail of blockchain, basically meaning that we're going to see not thousands but millions of ICOs. Hopefully we'll get a moment to ask a question about that later on. So Galia, are you live right now?
Yes, I'm live. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. It is great to have you. So Galia is the co-founder of Bancor. She's been active in this space for years in a row now, done multiple experiments, and now, of course, had a really successful ICO. And I'm really excited to have you here today, Galia. You're going to talk, among other things, about the tokenization, and I thought I'd just give you a moment to introduce yourself to the audience here today and let you take it away. How does that sound?
Yeah, great. So hi, everyone. Thanks for having me again. Hopefully, next time I can come live to Amsterdam, but I'm glad to be able to be with you this way as well. So Ton mentioned it. I'm the co-founder of Bancor Protocol. Bancor launched with a token generation event June 12th of this year. We raised 153 million worth of Ether on that day in just under 3 hours. It was the largest ICO at the time since the DAO. We've had a couple, 3 or 4 other larger ICOs since, but certainly it was one of the more exciting moments this year in the space. Bancor is building a decentralized liquidity network. Our aim is to allow any token to be automatically convertible for any other token. And we'll talk now in the rest of the time a little bit about why that's important and why that really opens up the door to what we call user-generated currencies, which cannot be possible without a more scalable and automated liquidity solution, such as the one that Bancor is providing.
Fantastic, Galia. Thanks so much for the introduction. And before we go into that, the tokenization topic, just a brief question, because with Bancor, of course, you raised 153 million, which also means today you have about 11,000 stakeholders, right? So could you maybe explain to the audience how that works, and also people that are contemplating building an ICO, what you should take into account? You have basically 11,000 people that are constantly also asking you for, what you're doing and what your goals are. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So there were 10,850, right around there, contributors to the Bancor TGE. A lot of times people talk about how easy it is or how quick it is to raise money in this space. And I always like to share that really everything is about trade-offs. So on the one hand, there are things that are maybe more fluid in the space. Maybe you can raise kinds of capital for kinds of projects that you couldn't do before in the traditional ecosystem. But there are all kinds of new challenges that present themselves. I heard you guys talking a little bit before about legal, of course. The legal overhead in a space that is yet to be defined is quite massive if you want to do things right and do things safely for yourself, for your team, for your contributors. But there are a lot of other trade-offs. So for example, the one that you mentioned is that rather than having 4 or 5 investors, you have thousands or tens of thousands.
Exactly.
And these are contributors, which is slightly different than an investor. But suffice it to say that you have tens of thousands of people that really care every single day what you're doing, why you're doing it, why you're not doing things, and they have an opinion. And thanks to the internet and this space is very active in channels like Twitter, like Telegram. Those people have access, depending how available the founders make themselves, but they have access to the community 24/7 from every time zone around the world. So something that's been really interesting, challenging, and also exciting for us at Bancor is kind of learning how to manage this ongoing dialogue with stakeholders around the clock and around the world. We do this quite successfully in a Telegram group, so we have about 4,000 members in the Telegram group, and it's an active channel. I encourage anyone who's interested in sort of learning how community management can be effective to join the group. It's Telegram/Bancor, Bancor. And basically their contributors or anyone really that joins the group is free to ask questions all day long, and these can be very fundamental questions like, where do you see the network in 5 years? And these can be very, very specific questions like, I saw someone on the website a month ago and now I don't see them. What happened with that guy? Exactly. And things like this. Or I heard that one of the founders was at Burning Man. Is this a vacation or are you working?
Exactly, yeah. It's
And
something
it's
to take into account, right? I think if you handled it pretty successfully. I talked to other founders as well, actually ICO holders that had not been that fortunate with the people in Telegram, especially when the price drops, right? I mean, if the price goes up, there's all kinds of fun means, and when it goes down, it's going to be a little bit tougher. So Bancor, so maybe Galia, maybe you could briefly elaborate a bit about the foundation, right? So the Bancor Foundation doesn't have a real revenue-driven perspective. So could you elaborate a bit on that? How does it work?
Sure. So the Bancor Foundation is a not-for-profit Swiss foundation. And the reason that we built our structure in this way is really to advance an industry-wide protocol. So anyone who is looking to launch a project whose aim is really to allow anyone in the industry across different companies, across different profit centers, to use a standard, to use a protocol, to use a network that's fueled by a token, a not-for-profit foundation is an elegant way to do this. Why? Because think of kind of the structure that the UN tries to set up, right? Which is that it behooves every nation, potentially, to work with the UN. It's kind of a framework that allows everyone to play together. So when you build your token through a not-for-profit, the Bancor Foundation isn't looking to monetize any of its products. What the Bancor Foundation is looking to do is to perpetuate the adoption of the Bancor protocol. The way it can do this is, of course, by building value into BNT, because its budget is based on BNT. Yep. So the more value will exist within the BNT ecosystem, the longer the foundation will be able to perpetuate its goal, which is the adoption of the protocol, which leads to this decentralized liquidity network that we're describing, which allows essentially anyone to create a token and for that token to be potentially viable on day one. In other words, not to fail due to illiquidity. There are many other reasons that tokens might fail, but our aim is to eliminate the illiquidity challenge from that list of reasons. Yeah,
no, exactly. So if you look at that, from the past companies that have been raising money, of course you have to wait years to get a live result, and now there's a directly live ticker. And a price that is changing every moment, and so much is speculative. So what in your perspective is the responsibility from all the stakeholders in that system?
Well, this is a bigger question, right? Which is, what is our responsibility as human stakeholders in the business of living, right? And so I would say to that one of our responsibilities is to understand the trade-offs of contributing to different projects, definitely understand what projects are trying to do, how long it might take them to do that, and to understand that if we want to create very large, quick profits, we're probably creating a profit thanks to financial engineering and not thanks to real value creation and generation. As we know, anyone who's built anything knows that things take time to build and to build right. Not to mention big things, right? Like a new decentralized economy. Absolutely. And so I think that if we're talking about the accountability of stakeholders in general, it's to understand the aim of the project that you're supporting, to believe in the aim of the project and believe that value will come to the tokens if the project is successful at reaching its aim. Anything else is, like you say, speculation and financial engineering.
Since the live connection is actually working pretty well, which is quite amazing because these things normally fail miserably, I think we actually can see if we can get some questions from the audience, if you're okay with that, Galia.
Sure.
Yeah, great. So is there anyone with a burning question for one of the co-founders of Bancor right now? That is putting you on the spot. Yeah, I see several people jumping in right now. Great. I think we need to mic. Could you say that again in the mic?
I heard it.
You heard it. Okay, great. Great.
So first of all, like I said, Bancor raised $153 million worth of Ether on that day. That was the peak price of Ether. We've never seen a price of Ether that high since that day. Let's just break it down a little bit so that we're working with the correct numbers, and then I'll get more to the essence of your question in a more generic way. So of the 153 that was raised, the soft cap of Bancor was 250K Ether. And what we announced was that anything that would be raised above the soft cap, which ended up reaching almost 400K Ether, so that 150K Ether delta was put into a price floor, essentially to create stability for the token in its first days, to allow anyone who wanted to back out of their position to do so, to create confidence within the community. So you can already take 150K Ether off of that number. It's about 40% of the 153. And then from the 250K, 20% of the raise was put into the reserve of the Bancor network token. So if you know how Bancor works, Bancor essentially tethers tokens to each other to create a liquidity network that is automated through the smart contracts. And our token itself, BNT, holds a 10% connector weight in Ether. And so because only 50% of the tokens were sold in the sale, 20% of the contributions were put into this reserve. So 50,000 more Ether of the 250 are actually locked into the contract of BNT, and they're still sitting there today. So now we're down to 200K Ether, which has a varying price depending on what day you look at it. So first of all, the numbers are quite different. I thought I heard 300 million out there, but the numbers are quite different than what you might read in the media, and you actually do need to both do the math and understand the terms, how the specific Bancor cell works. In terms of the more generic question, which is, why do projects raise X or Y amount, and how can any contributor know if that's the right amount? There's two answers that I like to give. One is, first of all, traditional financing.
Sorry, I lost you for a second. Yeah, you're back.
We have many, what you could call errors or misappropriations in the traditional financing market. VCs give too little and too much to companies all the time to do things that do work and that don't work. This is just happening in a closed door and very limited access environment, whereas in this new token generation environment, we're really kind of opening it up and letting people decide how much they want to contribute to what projects. And it's creating very different capital flows. Again, the trade-offs are that there are still overcapitalized and undercapitalized projects and projects that will succeed and fail. But there's nothing new here in terms of a mismatch, a potential mismatch between funding and companies and, of course, their chances of success in the end. As far as the specific Bancor TGE is concerned, one of the challenges that we had in the old model is that in order to leapfrog from the old economy to the new economy in this method that we're proposing, which is kind of a baked-in connector through the smart contracts, this network token architecture, you actually need to fund that initial connector token with a fair amount of capital to generate the kind of jumpstart liquidity for the network. And if any of you entrepreneurs have fundraised from VCs before, you know that this is not a proposition that a VC can effectively handle, right? To put a bunch of money into a smart contract to offer the initial liquidity for a network in a very brand new technology. And so Bancor is actually one of those TGEs that is uniquely suited to the kind of token launch that we did, and uniquely benefits from the amount of capital that it received, because the more capital it could lock into the contract as the jumpstart liquidity for the network, the more chances actually of this network to succeed.
Galia, thanks so much for the elegant and elaborate answer on that question. And unfortunately, we're already running short on time. That's the trick with these events. You want to keep people focused as well. This has been fascinating so far. Is there any maybe final thoughts that you can share with the audience that you'd like to get across?
Yeah, I always love to zoom out, and I'll try and do this quickly, but I like to zoom out and remind everyone to kind of think about what money is in the first place, why we invented money, what money helps us do. So in the beginning, we had barter, right? We traded things. It's very hard to find someone with the thing that you want exactly at the time, and you have the thing that they want. And so we created money to make this more scalable, more efficient, so everyone could agree on something that we wanted, whether it's gold or oil or seashells or whatever you got, and we can make trade more efficient. And money has gone essentially through two major phases and is now entering its third phase. So its original phase was money came from the earth. We used gold, we used salt, we used oil, we used things that we could see and quantify to represent this transactional mechanism between us, this tool. In the second phase, money comes from governments. Right? We let our governments issue the money, whether it's paper or digital. They decide how much there is and who gets it first and how much we rent it for. And that's where we are today. And we're entering now the third and I think most exciting era of money, which is money now comes from the people. The people decide what is money, and by people I mean this generically, but the people who invented Bitcoin, the people who invented Ether, the people who invented Bancor, the people who will invent the hundreds and thousands of tokens that we'll see in the coming years. And so it's really exciting to kind of zoom out and think about, if the people create the money, what does the money look like? Money, in the end of the day, is just an agreement between us, right? And can we form these agreements in any better, more efficient, more inclusive way than we've done in the first era and the second era of money? And of course, we at Bancor think absolutely.
Fantastic. Galia. Amazing. It's yeah, give her a round of it is always a pleasure to talk to you. Hopefully, we'll next time we'll do it live, either in Tel Aviv or Amsterdam or wherever we'll travel next. Thank you so much, and have a great day, and see you soon.
Sounds good, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you. All right. Bye-bye.